Hello, everyone, and welcome to our New Year, New Collections webinar for 2026, where we'll be highlighting the collections that we have newly acquired, newly processed, or newly digitized during the calendar year of 2025. I am Josh Hager. I am the head of Government Records Description, and I'll be your MC for today's proceedings. We have a fantastic lineup of archivists across all the units here in the State Archives. But before we get into our collections, I'd like to give a special welcome to our new state archivist, Kelly Policelli. Kelly?
Thanks so much, Josh. Um, yes, so 2026, new year, new archivist here at the State Archives. I'm Kelly Policelli, and I'm so happy you could all join us today to hear about the good work my colleagues are doing to acquire new collections and make them accessible to the public. Archives are often portrayed as sort of static and dusty, but the State Archives is actually a hive of activity. It's always growing, and with every edition, it changes a little bit. And that's exactly how it should be in a state that has such a dynamic history. I know that today's presentation will inspire new research inquiry, but I'm also hoping that it gets you all thinking about how you might participate in the archives. My colleagues and I take our responsibility to select materials for preservation very seriously, but archives at heart are really a community endeavor, which means that everybody here today, whether you're a government employee or a member of the public, has a potential role to play in making the collections at the State Archives as representative of our state's history as they can possibly be. So when we share our contact information at the end of the program, I hope that you'll get in touch with us, whether it's to get more information, to use a collection, or maybe even to donate or transfer one. And with that, I'm going to throw it back to Josh to get the party started.
Thank you, Kelly. We are so looking forward to seeing how all your new tenure goes here at the State Archives, and we are looking forward to the rest of our webinar today because we have, like I said, some amazing collections from across the State Archives. And we're going to start with the section I am in, Government Records. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Flannery Fitch to tell you all about some new state agency and county court records. Good afternoon, Flannery.
Thanks, Josh. I'm Flannery Fitch, and I am the appraisal archivist who works for the government records section. I work for both the records description unit and the records analysis unit, so I assist in state agency and county court records, which is what we're going to talk about now. Next. So for state agency records, we at the records description unit had a couple of major projects that we worked on. I'm going to talk more in depth about the first one in a second, which is the Juvenile Justice Record Group, which is a record group that covers the juvenile justice services, or what was once known as youth services, for North Carolina. The other large collection that was processed and will be discussed a little bit later was the Government Moorhead School Record Group. And the Governor Moorhead School was the residential school for blind and low vision students. And what we did was reprocess and digitize all of those. Can I have the next slide, please? So the Juvenile Justice Record Group was the major project that we worked on this year. Coming from a patron request, the main part of this involved doing redactions to ensure that there was no personal identifying information about the people included in those in the records. So essentially, these were records that contained highly sensitive information about juveniles. Essentially, these were schools for children who were said to have aggressive or violent behavior, and were sent to essentially short-term residential facilities for therapeutic services for kids. So we had a couple of different series that we redacted for that, and largely it was doing things like removing social security numbers or the names of students who were involved in medical issues. Basically, if there was something super personal about you that somebody could use to identify you and take your identity, or if it was medical information you did not want to get out, that's the kind of thing that we go through and redact to protect the privacy of those involved, including yourselves, should that ever have come back. So what we do generally is we go through the documents. We look to see if there's information that needs to be redacted or restricted. We take care of that, and then we make sure that it is accessible for researchers to use. Next slide. So there were three main projects that we worked on for the Juvenile Justice Group. The first was the Willie M. program file correspondence. And the Willie M. program was the landmark program for children with aggressive or violent behavior. And this was something where we went through and redacted correspondence. It was run as part of Department of Health and Human Services, and it was something that has a really high amount of research value. The second one was the principals file for the Juvenile Evaluation Center, and this was one of the therapeutic short-term residential facilities. We essentially spent our time redacting everything from correspondence, administrative policies, meeting minutes, monthly reports, school calendars, student and staff publications, a whole variety of anything that a school would produce. And the third group that we did was the therapeutic camping branch administration file. And this was very similar. It was one of the first of 4 camps in the therapeutic camping system in North Carolina. And it was a short-term residential facility for high-risk youth. And it was the same work. We redacted things that involved correspondence, administrative materials, and other various sensitive information. Next slide. The other major part that we work with are, in addition to state agency records, are county records. So one of the projects that we did this year was that we processed the divorce records that we received from Alamance County. It was a little over 5,000 records spanning from 1926 to 1968. And we have gotten all of those processed, and they should be available for use next month sometime. So that will be a really interesting and useful tool for people who are trying to do genealogical research for Alamance County in particular. The second thing that we did, which is what I oversee, is the collection of court records. Next slide. So county court records are essentially any records that were created by a courthouse. We have been in the process of trying to take in any court records from about prior to 1968 so that we can make sure we've got all of those really old ones. We went to 9 different counties this year. We collected approximately 265 cubic feet of boxes. So that's boxes of loose files, and that's about 265 boxes. And we brought back 1,207 volumes. And what's pictured here is what we call the shucks wall. Those slots along the top are actually kind of like library card carrying card catalog drawers, except that they're for taller materials. And those empty rolls that you can see are where the volumes go. Next slide. One of the great things that we did this year for one of the counties that we visited was actually in disaster response for Hurricane Helene. In case people do not remember, when Helene hit, the French Broad River was one of the rivers that immediately overflowed, and it went directly into their downtown. Essentially, the river parallels their downtown, and it went up the hill and directly into their courthouse. And next slide. This is an image from the interior of the courthouse. As you can see where these gaps in the wall are, they had to cut out about 4 foot of drywall that had been damaged by the water. The basement was essentially a total loss, but what you can see here is the original flooring from the courthouse, which lasted out all of the other materials there. Next slide. So these are some examples of the types of things that we brought back from various courthouses. Specifically, these were from Madison County. Some of them are criminal dockets, which trace all of the criminal trials that were happening. And some of those oldest records there go all the way back to the 1800s. We have special proceedings from the spring terms of the early 1800s. And as you can see, some of these volumes were a little bit beat up. So we were really, really happy to be able to help them out and get those materials safely back to Raleigh, where they can reside in a climate-controlled space that will not be flooded by the French Broad River. It was a really amazing experience, and it was really nice to be able to do something that was not just taking in the records, but being able to give back to a county that was really struggling and to be able to help them out because that's what we like to do, is help out everybody. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Flannery. We were really proud of our work in government records section, so we're really glad to get to show it off. And now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague in the digital access branch, Anna Peitzman, to tell us about the newly digitized collections in 2025. Good afternoon,
Thanks,
Anna.
Josh. Thanks, Josh. I'm Anna Peitzman, the head of the Digital Access Branch, otherwise known as DAB. One of the goals for my team is to enhance our digital collections through digitization efforts. Because the State Archives holds so many records, it's imperative for us each year to prioritize those efforts through projects that focus on specific series and records groups. So now let's talk about how that translates into the digital collections as you may know them. The North Carolina Digital Collections, or NCDC, is a collaboration between the State Archives and the State Library of North Carolina. So in part, the State Archives collects, preserves, and provides public access to historically significant archival materials relating to North Carolina. That's part of our mission statement. The digital collections come in and represent those efforts with nearly 200,000 photos, publications, manuscripts, and more. The collections are free and full text searchable. We are constantly working to build the collections and make them more accessible through initiatives like transcription work and more. All right, let's move on and talk about some of the specific types of collections you'll find. On this slide, you'll see a few selected collections. The African American collection includes materials from the Charlotte Hawkins Brown Museum, which is a North Carolina historic site, and the Department of Public Instruction Record Group here at the State Archives. The World War I and World War II collections include posters, letters, photos, maps from those eras. General Assembly session records contain bills, amendments, petitions, and more related to state legislatures and colonial assemblies from 1709 to 1872, at least for now. That range is going to be added to later this year. We also periodically collaborate with other institutions on digitization projects. Newspapers from the State Archives are hosted at digitalnc.org and include more than 1,000 titles published from 1751 to 1898. All right, let's move right along and talk about some of the great additions the DAB team made to NCDC in 2025. First up, we've got the North Carolina Nurses Association. Showcases a profession that was dominated by women throughout the 20th century, but still brought challenges for those serving in leadership roles. Virginia Marshbeck papers include records that show Virginia serving as the superintendent of Rex Hospital for a decade from 1925 to 1934. There she oversaw daily activity at the hospital as well as student and registered nurses. These letters paint a picture of a woman who is very well respected, many invitations and lots of correspondence to events and working with students and founding members of the NCNA. Carrie Early Broadfoot joined 4 other Black nurses to create the North Carolina Colored Graduate Nurses Association to organize and support the work of Black nurses. This group held lectures, workshops, and trainings on new medical knowledge in order to help Black nurses stay at the forefront of their qualifications. All right, let's talk about our next collection. Founded in 1845 in Raleigh as the North Carolina Institute for the Education of the Deaf and Dumb, the Governor Moorhead School was one of the earliest institutions for educating blind and deaf students in the U.S. This collection traces the history and development of the school from 1843 all the way up through 1970. It includes a mix of photos, reports, correspondence, and more. Next slide, please. After initially opening its doors only to deaf students, the school began admitting blind students in 1851. And then in 1867, it became the first public institution in the nation to admit blind or deaf African American students. All right, Now let's move on to the boundary papers, which span from 1773 to 1953. It includes maps, reports, and other papers that show North Carolina's boundary lines with our surrounding states, as well as between counties and townships. It really demonstrates the relationships between state governments as North Carolina was developing, and also myriad reasons why those boundaries were defined and then also contested. Next slide, please. A special interest in this collection are the reports from North Carolina's county commissioners in 1868 that defined the boundaries of townships in each county. As you know, in 1868, North Carolina ratified the 14th Amendment and rejoined the Union following the secession in 1861. And with that, let's move on to our final digital collection for today, highlight anyway. A. Brown worked as the director of the Dare County Tourism Bureau for 25 years. The photograph collection highlights the Outer Banks communities and includes documentation on a whole slew of areas, including the recreational fishing industry around the Oregon Inlet on Nag's Head, the Lost Colony outdoor drama, hotels, boats and shipwrecks, wildlife and conservation efforts, and much more. Next slide, please. Brown's work contributed to the growth of Dare County into one of the nation's leading resort areas in the 1950s and 1960s. You can see some folks here enjoying the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center, along with the lovely aerial of the inlet itself. And with that, I'll hand it back to Josh as we segue into hearing from the Outer Banks History Center
Yes,
folks.
it's the perfect segue to hearing from our two satellite facilities. And we're going to start with our satellite facility in Manteo, the Outer Banks History Center, and my colleague, Tammy Woodward. Tammy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Josh. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Tammy Woodward. I'm the director of the Outer Banks History Center. The History Center is the eastern branch of the state archives, and we are located in Manteo on Roanoke Island. Our mission is to collect the coastal history of the entire state, so don't let our name fool you. We're not just the Outer Banks. In 2025, the Outer Banks History Center took in about 51 donations of new collections from individuals, businesses, and organizations that were added to our holdings. So our collections have continued to grow, which is really exciting. So today I will be highlighting two of our new collections received or processed in 2025. The first collection from 2025 that I would like to highlight is a scrapbook from the Coin Jock Home Demonstration Club, dated 1931 to 1987. The Coin Jock Home Demonstration Club was organized in 1925, and Miss Rochelle Everett is cited as the first home demonstration agent sent to Currituck County. The clubhouse building began, you see there in the middle, began construction in 1930 and was dedicated in 1937. The club remained in operation until about the 1950s. This collection contains a scrapbook and various histories of Currituck County created by the Coin Jock Home Demonstration Club. The scrapbook was likely created by Catherine Louise Bright Boswood Overton, or Katie Overton for short, who was the secretary of the club in the 1950s. It contains newspaper articles about the club itself, in addition to newsletters, photographs, and ephemera. Other items that were found tucked inside the scrapbook were compiled histories of Currituck County and some newspaper clippings. And to give you a bit about this important history, home demonstration clubs were a program of the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Cooperative Extension Service. In 1918, agricultural counties across the country were required to have an extension agent to help raise production and promote conservation of resources during the First World War. In 1932, with the economy weakened by bank closures, farm foreclosures, and high unemployment during the Great Depression, some counties decided to discontinue extension operations. But in 1933, with the passage of the Agricultural Adjustment Act, every agricultural county in the United States was required to have a county extension agent to administer this important federal program. Home demonstration agents were always women, and they worked with local women to provide teaching services. Their goal was to teach farm women in rural America better methods in areas such as gardening, canning, nutrition, managing finances, child rearing, cooking and food preparation, social awareness, home decoration, healthcare, shopping, handcrafts, and sewing. The organization of home demonstration clubs advanced the livelihoods of farm women throughout the state of North Carolina. And these activities are represented in this beautiful scrapbook, and the collection was donated by the granddaughter of Katie Overton. So the next collection that I would like to highlight is the Dear Boys Newsletters of Belhaven collection. This collection contains original issues of the Dear Boys newsletter based in Belhaven, North Carolina. They were issued during the 1940s. There are 22 issues of the newsletter dating from 1942 to 1945 found in this collection, and most letters are 4 to 6 pages long. The purpose of these newsletters was to inform U.S. soldiers from Belhaven serving during World War II all around the world about the latest news and gossip back at home. You can see in the letters on the screen, they included local town gossip like who is getting married, who got a new job, who painted their house, and all the tea happening in Belhaven. Although the editors for the newsletter fluctuated with each edition, the authors were primarily working women from the Belhaven area. The specific letters in this collection were addressed to a Mr. Claude R. Taylor, a soldier stationed at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and later Camp Campbell, Kentucky. The collection was donated by the Belhaven Historical Society. Both of these collections are cataloged and available for research at the Outer Banks History Center in Manteo. So please contact the History Center and our staff if you'd like to learn more about other donations that we received this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tammy. I really want to dive into those newsletters and see what kind of tea was happening in Belhaven in 1943. But alas, we will move on and jump all the way across the state from Manteo over to Asheville as we hear from our other satellite facility from the Western Regional Archives. Good afternoon, Heather South.
Afternoon, Josh, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to highlight some of our great collections that have been added to the Western Regional Archives. We're the Western branch, so we're located in Asheville, and we're a two-person shop, so we're small but mighty. And one of the biggest collections that we have here deals with Black Mountain College. Black Mountain College was a liberal arts school, opened in 1933, operated till 1957. It was ahead of its time in a lot of ways. And anytime we can add new materials to that, our holdings on Black Mountain College, it almost instantaneously gets used. So we're really excited about these three collections: the Gisela Cronenberg Hurwitz letters, the Haile Yammans Green letters, and the Laura Cadden Lindenfeld papers. All three of these ladies were immigrants or from immigrant families. A lot of research and scholarship has been done on the refugee faculty of Black Mountain College, but really no one has looked at the student perspective and what it was like being a Jewish student or a refugee student. And so we're really excited about these collections to sort of help paint that story. All three ladies went to Black Mountain College. All three were actually graduates of Black Mountain College, which was kind of rare because all total, there was only about 60 graduates of the college. And all three are very unique, but they all help tell that story. First, we're going to talk about Gisela and Haile. Gisela was born in 1922. She was 13 when they immigrated to the United States. They were fleeing persecution. They ended up in Ohio, and she actually met some Black Mountain College faculty who were lecturing in Ohio, promoting the college, and she decided that was where she wanted to go. She enrolled in the fall of 1940, and she attended until May of 1943 when she graduated. Haile actually was born in Massachusetts, but her parents had immigrated here, so she's a first-generation immigrant, and she is to Russian parents, and she attended Black Mountain College from the fall of 36 until her graduation in the spring of 41. And so they only overlapped for a very short time, but as we can see from the schematic in the middle of the slide there, they actually had rooms just around the corner from each other. So Gisela was in room 109 and Hailey was in 118. So they would have crossed paths quite frequently. I think they might have been roommates at one point, but I haven't been able to prove that yet, but we'll see. While these two have distinct personalities and writing styles, they were both very generous in the information that they provided us in their letters and gave us so much insight about what campus life was like. Next slide, please. The time period that these letters cover is significant because the letters home talk about the work program. At the time that both ladies were here, the college was transitioning and building a new campus at Lake Eden. So they're talking about that work program. Gisela's specialty is electrical work. And while Hailey really didn't have a specialty like that, she did enjoy the sunshine so much that she writes home about not minding shoveling sand and gravel so much because she was outside in the sunshine. They both talk about the war, so they're both there with when things are escalating overseas. And Gisela actually has a letter where she learned about the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and her letters are really more contemplative and reflective. And Hailey tends to be a little bit more social and a little bit more on the bright side of life. And so she's talking more about the dances and the parties, but both ladies talk about their friendships and their relationships, the good things, the bad things, visitors, their worries. And so it all really gives us some great firsthand look at what life was like. I think one of my favorite letters is the Hailey Yemen's letters on Hanukkah at the college. One of the things that isn't really discussed or hasn't really been talked about is religion on campus. And so her insights into celebrating Hanukkah, I think the first Hanukkah she's there, they're using birthday candles because they couldn't find traditional candles or a proper menorah. So, so all of that is really going to help paint some great stories for us. The next collection and the last one we're going to highlight today are the Laura Cadden Lindenfeld papers. And Laura was a student at Black Mountain College. She also was a German refugee. She was born in 1921, and her family was forced to flee under Nazi rule, and they came in 1939. She was actually already studying fashion and textiles. So Black Mountain College seemed to be a perfect fit for her. And so she actually came in the fall of 1945 and attended until her graduation in spring of 1948. She studied art and weaving, and specifically weaving in textiles became her sort of signature career move. And she studied with Annie Albers and Trudy Guermont-Pré, which she's pictured with in the photo on the left. And then she actually ends up having a career. She goes back to school and gets her master's in the 1980s. She ends up teaching textile and weaving and art education. She designs textiles for a bunch of different clothing houses. So we have a lot of tear sheets, which is what you see on the right about the different fashion houses she was working for. And you can go ahead to the next slide. And one of the most interesting things that we have are actually some of those textile samples in her papers. And when we got them, they were just all sort of shoved into a shoebox. And so we've been actually working with our conservator and taking each individual sample out. They are now in these nice matted Mylar sleeves, and so that they can be handled and looked at. And we're super excited for anyone to come and take a look at them. Her class notes and even her lecture notes from when she was teaching really all reflect back to what she was learning at Black Mountain College. She talks about her lessons specifically with Joseph and Annie Albers, as well as the Bauhaus School. All three of these collections are different, but they all have insights that are going to really showcase and shine a light on refugee students and immigrant perspective, but also campus life. And so we're excited to add these to our new our collections for researchers to use.
Thank you, Heather, so much. We got an audible, well, not audible, but an OMG in the chat when you showed the textiles. People are very excited about these collections. So that's fantastic. And we can't wait to see all your researchers rushing in to Asheville to use those collections. Let's go back to the center of the state now and back to here in Raleigh with our special collections section. Good afternoon, Elizabeth.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Josh. My name is Elizabeth Bates. I am the Organization Records Archivist in the Special Collections section here in Raleigh. Like our colleagues at the Outer Banks History Center and the Western Regional Archives, we are the archivists who bring in and make available non-government materials. We have multiple units across the Special Collections section, so I'll just be giving brief highlights of some of the things that we've touched in the past year. I promise it's not everything, and I'm going to have to be a little brief to cover it all. First of all, I'd like to let you know that our longtime colleague, Colin Reeve, retired in spring last year. So we have a new private collections archivist, Juliana Seiler, joined us in June. This collection is the Pete Hendricks Speechwriting Files, which is a collection that Juliana accessioned and processed last year, it's January now. Pete Hendricks served as speechwriter for Bob Scott during his 1980 campaign for governor. Scott previously had served as governor from, I believe, 69 to 73. He lost the 1980 Democratic nomination to the incumbent Jim Hunt, who was elected to a second term. That's notable because that was the first election where a North Carolina governor was actually able to be elected to a consecutive term. This collection is small, it's 0.2 cubic feet, so it's a little skinny box, but it consists of research materials, drafts of speeches, and these materials provide a record of the campaign that they ran, as well as the political climate of North Carolina in 1980. The image you see here is Mr. Hendricks' desk blotter, which we kept mostly for visual interest. It includes his meeting notes, but also his wonderful doodles. The next slide is also about our private collections. This is not a new collection, rather an update on an ongoing project. Since 2023, I've been responsible for running our private collections rehousing project, where we, along with assistance from our registrar, outreach, reference, and digital access branch, as well as our wonderful interns and volunteers, are carefully replacing old, non-archivable, degrading boxes and folders with modern, buffered, chemically stable archivable containers. So you can see here the flat brown boxes on the table are these old ones. I think they were originally black when they were new. And these are the boxes that we're replacing. At the start of this project, we had 1,516 of those boxes across all of the private collections, and we're down to 266. So we're planning to be done this calendar year. It's very exciting. The new containers will be modern gray archival boxes, like you can see in the background of this photograph. Next slide, please. Our oral history unit update is about their digital collection. So this overlaps with what Anna was talking about somewhat. This year, they've been working to put many of the collected oral histories into a digital collection with metadata and download links. You can see a screenshot of that webpage on the screen here. I've included the URL on the slide, and you can also navigate to digital collections through our website. I believe we're almost at 100 in this digital collection now, but don't quote me on that. Next slide, please. Our audiovisual materials unit has brought in and processed this new collection, which is the James Valentine photograph collection. Valentine was a gifted poet, a filmmaker, an educator, and an artist, as well as an exceptional photographer of the American South. This collection consists of approximately 10,000 to 15,000 negative slides and photographic prints. They're in both black and white and color formats. The images depict landscapes across the entire breadth of North Carolina, and they include locations like the Roanoke River floodplains, Kill Devil Hills, Pilot Mountain, Grandfather Mountain, the Blue Ridge Parkway, Mount Mitchell, Linville Gorge, a number of state parks, Appalachian Mountains, Asheville, Marion, the Pisgah National Forest, Cape Hatteras, among others. These photographs were taken in a long period spanning from the 1970s through the 1990s and perhaps even into the 2000s. In the wake of Hurricane Helene's devastating impact on Western North Carolina, with catastrophic flooding and landslides and severe infrastructural damage that altered the landscape, this collection gains even greater significance. You can reach out to our audiovisual unit to access that collection. This collection is the McGahee Family Military Papers. It contains correspondence, photographs, and other documents related to the World War I experience of John McGahee Sr., who you can see pictured at the top left there, and the World War II experiences of John Alex McGahee Jr. The original collection came to the archives in 2003 and was fairly small. It consisted mostly of letters from Alex written back home. Last year, we received an addition to the collection, which includes more than 150 photographs from Alex McGahee's deployment to England during World War II. There, he served alongside British intelligence, intercepting enemy radio transmissions and relaying the information on to Station X at Bletchley Park for decryption and analysis. The image of Bow Manor Hall here at the bottom of this slide is where he served at Station X, I think. Because of the addition, the collection was reprocessed in 2025, and our military collections archivist, Ashley Lattapost, digitized and described all the photographs in the collection and added them to an album on the archive's Flickr page. So be sure to check those out. Next slide, please. This one's my baby. So one of the organizational collections that I brought in last year was the North Carolina Society of Engineers records. The North Carolina Society of Engineers was founded in Durham in 1918. There's a historical Roxborough Street marker in Durham. I think it's G98 on the historical marker catalog, but again, don't quote me on that. The society was actively involved with state legislation and support for engineering developments in North Carolina from its inception on. And they were instrumental in the establishment of a licensure board for engineers and surveyors in 1921. At the peak of their popularity, I guess would be the right word, they had almost 1,400 members across the state in the 1960s. However, from that time on, there was a gradual decline. In recent years, the decline became much steeper, and in 2024, leadership and the board of directors voted to disband, and they donated their records to us in 2025. The records consist primarily of their official journal and newsletters, as well as programs from their summer and winter meetings. The page you see here is from their 1966 annual meeting, and I don't know if you can read the text, but most of the program events are about the emerging technology of computers. The ladies program at the bottom right consists of a coffee hour and shopping, which is also funny to me. Next slide, please. Oh, I should mention about that last one. The earliest records of the North Carolina Society of Engineers did not exist in the possession of the society, so we do not have them. So if you happen to see a newsletter from 1920 kicking around in an attic somewhere, let me know. So for this last slide, I want to talk about our academic records collection. This won't apply to most people, but for many of you, you may have attended a private college or university in the state of North Carolina. We cannot show you these records because of student privacy laws. However, we are able to take in records from closed private post-secondary schools and colleges and make their official student transcripts available. This does not include high schools. This is strictly colleges and professional programs. And it does not mean that we receive the records from every private school that closes. However, for the school whose records that we receive, we're able to act as a trusted repository. Because they are official records from a private organization, they are not government records, but fall under our purview in special collections. So last year we accepted records from just 2 schools. Usually we have more than 2. St. Andrews University closed after nearly 70 years in operation, and we drove down to Laurinburg and we picked up all of their student transcripts. We also received student records from the CertQuick Nurse Aid Training Program of, I believe, Aden, North Carolina. So if you are an alum of a closed private college in the state of North Carolina, we may have your student transcript. A list of those schools that we have records for is on our website, and our reference staff will handle any requests related to those. And that's all I have for you today. I'll pass you back to Josh.
Thank you, Elizabeth. The contact information for everyone is on the slides, and we'll be sending out this information as well as the links. We're sending out the links and the recording of the webinar to all the people who registered for today's presentation. So you don't have to be writing down this information furiously. And we look forward to hearing from you. Please, at this point, go ahead and put your questions into the chat or the Q&A. We do have some questions that have already come in, so I'll go ahead and start fielding those. And the first question that came in was for Flannery. And Flannery, we had a question of which counties did we visit in 2025? I know you mentioned Madison, but there were a few others.
Yeah, so Madison was one of the bigger ones, but the other ones that we went to Columbus County, we went to Brunswick, we went to Caldwell County, we went to Duplin County, Lenoir County, Mecklenburg County, Wake County, And the other two really big ones that we did were Cleveland County. We took a lot of stuff back from Cleveland County, so that was really cool. And we are actually going back up tomorrow to Halifax to finish our records pickup. So that was actually 10 counties. Halifax wasn't finished yet, so I didn't have it on the list, but we're really looking forward to getting back up there tomorrow.
And as you might imagine, Mecklenburg was the biggest by an order of magnitude.
Yes.
Charlotte, Mecklenburg, over 400 books alone, not even including the boxes. So it's a big.
And that was just their civil division. We are still expecting to hear from criminal at some point in time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Flannery. Our next question that came in, I'm sorry, I'm going to go for the ones that came in earlier first. A question for Elizabeth. Are there plans to digitize the Valentine photos? And that might also be a question for Anna as well about how we make those decisions.
That would be up to someone from our AV unit to respond, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, that's probably fair, but maybe we can hear from Anna as to how we can make those decisions about which collections get added and how.
Yeah, sure thing. Sorry, I was pulling a link to the Revor collection on the digital collections to respond to Rebecca in chat. Okay, so yeah, myriad factors go into decisions around what to digitize and what projects to take on each year. So, we definitely want to make sure that we are aligned with agency and division strategic initiatives. Other factors that might come into play include high patron use, any conservation issues that need to be addressed, digitizing so folks don't, there's greater access and folks don't have to handle the original material. We collaborate with colleagues across the division each year to identify collections of interest. So in this case, we would be in discussion with special collections around the Valentine letters. So priorities are built around that, plus the size and the scope of collections and the staff time that's required to both scan the materials and then also create really robust metadata so that those items are findable and accessible to folks. I saw a question in the chat earlier about like which projects we're really excited about this year. A couple of them are actually things that have been acquired this year that folks have talked about, with the Haile Yemen's letters and the Gisela Cronenberg, and also NC Society of Engineers letters. So those are anticipated to be digitally available next year.
And we've got a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to try to get to all of them. So I'm just going to jump around here. The next question, I believe this is a good one for Tammy, for Heather, and for Elizabeth. Teresa asks, how do you decide if items donated by citizens qualify for inclusion? So what we're getting at here is, what is our collection criteria if somebody wanted to come to OBHC, WRA, or here in Raleigh and donate some materials? How do we decide if it belongs? We'll start with Tammy, then Heather, then Elizabeth.
So the Special Collections Division has an amazing collection development policy or acquisition policy that kind of gives us parameters as archivists on what to accept, how we can accept it, and what the extent. It could be a condition limitation, like if something has mold or active mold or something, we may not be able to take it on condition. But for the most part, it's usually just research value. Does it have research value? I like to say just because something is old doesn't make it archival. And so we kind of look at, the creator. Can the material be used by researchers? Can we adequately house it? Like someone can bring me a Picasso, and while it's beautiful, it doesn't mean I can actually store it in my archive. So there's a lot of, decisions that go in, kind of parameters that go into making that decision. If Elizabeth and Heather want to chime in as well.
And for Tammy and myself being in the branches, we follow that collection policy, but we also sort of go by our region. So I serve the western part of the state. So pretty much anything this side of Charlotte to the western part of the state. And Tammy, of course, serves the coast. So and then anything that's being offered to us that's more statewide significance, we defer to to Elizabeth there in Raleigh. So we're always looking at the informational value, the institutional value, as well as sort of reference value. It is not that it has to be someone famous that or somebody of high significance. It can just be a great collection of family photographs. But if it's of an area we don't have anything from, or a small community, then that's significant. And especially here in, I know for Western North Carolina, we have so many small rural communities that, you know, if we don't have anything that documents or any photos across all branches of the state archives, then it's important for us to try and capture some of that while we can. I hope that answered the question.
I would like to chime in and say that one of the things that we consider as well is unique materials. Our mission as an archive is to preserve things that aren't preserved anywhere else. And a lot of times people will come to us and say, I collected every single newspaper for the last 100 years. But that's newspapers, while historical and perhaps old, are not necessarily a unique artifact. So that's the type of thing that we think about when we're looking at things that people are offering to us.
Thank you all. And I do encourage, if you have potential things you'd like to donate to the state archives here in Raleigh, at OEHC, or the Western Regional Archives, please reach out to their respective contacts, and the archivist will be happy to let you know if your materials are a good fit for our collections. The next question, it was directed to Flannery, but I think I can actually answer this one a bit more because I think I worked on this query. The juvenile justice query, Adrian asked, can you tell us anything about the Patron Project? Was it genealogy or more academic? It wasn't genealogy because, as Flannery said, all the names of all the students have been redacted. So genealogy in that collection is not going to be a possibility. The patron is working on a documentary about juvenile justice, and I don't want to give more away because it's in production, but essentially the research, and it's not just her, other scholars have been looking at these collections too since they've been processed. These materials speak to the training schools, which were essentially the juvenile detention facilities. The therapeutic camping was sort of an avant-garde approach to juvenile rehabilitation. So these materials really get at the intersection of the criminal justice system, education reform, prison reform in the 60s and 70s, all these hot button issues. You've got a little bit of mental health history in there as well. And so naturally, it's sort of a focus of a lot of social history, medical history kind of scholarly work across a lot of disciplines. And so we've got multiple scholars looking at those collections. And now that they've been redacted and the names of the juveniles are out of the collections, they can be used for that historical research. And we're hopeful that it can help with all that scholarship for those really critical areas. So thank you for the question. So the next question we have is, let's see, Abby Lewis. Anna already answered it, but what projects are on the to-do list for 2026 that you're most excited about? So Anna already answered it, so then we'll go with the rest of us in turn. And Kelly, I don't know if you want to chime in on this one as well as the state archivist for what your plans are looking forward to for the year ahead. But
I will say that it gives us a opportunity to plug some of the other things that are going on. I think this year is going to be dominated by America 250. And we have some really exciting exhibits that are going to be traveling around the state to various locations. So I hope that everyone will take a look at the DNCR website and the America 250 calendars. We also have some material online that's related to America 250, and folks have asked questions about where that can be accessed. We are going to develop a page on our website that kind of points directly to those resources online and where they are in our digital collections so that they're easier to find as we're all sort of participating in this celebration over the course of the next year. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to traveling around a little bit and meeting people from across the state. And it's not really new. It's actually very old, but worth mentioning here nonetheless.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. Then Flannery, I know you already mentioned, but we're going to Halifax County tomorrow to finish off a big pickup. So I think we've got some excitement there. Do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to going up to Halifax again because they're one of the oldest counties in the state. Some of speaking of America 250s things, some of the materials that we brought back from Halifax in our first trip actually are from like 1760. It's really cool. I will never ever tire of getting to open up one of those court books and see a date of 1760. So I'm really looking forward to going back up there. And I think that we are also expecting to go back out to Rutherfordton and Rowan County and possibly back to Madison to collect a few things. So I'm just excited. I love getting to travel around and visit the different counties and the different courthouses. So anytime I get to drive out to your county and check things out is honestly what I look forward to the most. But Halifax is definitely that's the thing I'm most excited about right now.
Yes, and in terms of state agency work, I think the thing I'm most excited about, we are continuing work on the Learning Institute of North Carolina, which was um, an organization that was sort of quasi-governmental. It was kind of at a strange spot, but did a lot of really cutting-edge education programming in the state in the 70s into the early 80s. When we got it, it was basically 86 boxes that were taken out of file cabinets and not described at all. We've been working really hard over the past year and into this year to get some order into that collection, take out confidential information, get it into a place where it could be used. And we're hoping that later this year we can complete that collection. But certainly there's parts of it that are already ready, including a series on the Carolina Boys Camp, which was the predecessor to the therapeutic camping branch that we talked about earlier. So we're excited for that. And let's see, Anna already gave what she's excited about for 2026. Do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, just again to further what Kelly was mentioning about America 250, the DAB team has been working for quite a few years to build out the A250 materials, digitize those and make those accessible. And so to Kelly's point, we'll be making that a little bit easier to find here in the coming weeks because there is just so much material, and combine that along with all the other great initiatives that are going on at the archives. So definitely want to highlight that as well.
Thank you. Tammy, what are you looking forward to in 2026?
Sorry about that. I'm trying to get my camera to come on. In case you're not aware, we had pretty much half of 2025 was spent renovating the Outer Banks History Center. We got a beautiful new facelift since the building was built in 1989. So we didn't get as much processing done in 2025 as we would have liked. So 2026, we're super excited to tackle our backlog and get some collections processed. And we're doing an amazing speaker series with our friends group right now, bringing in local authors to do talks every month, and co-hosting it with a local community college, which is really exciting. So we're looking forward to a renovation-free year, I guess you could say.
Yes, good on it. And Heather, how about what's going on out in Asheville?
Well, we've got some new collections on the horizon that we're very excited about, some other Black Mountain College student material. Most of the students are actually deceased, and so it's their families are now cleaning out and finding material. So we've got two new collections in the works. Can't tell you much about them yet, so stay tuned. And then, as Anna alluded to, we're going to be digitizing the Haile Yemen's letters and Gisela's letters, and hopefully you guys will be able to help us. And we're going to put them up in our Transcribe NC. And if you haven't used Transcribe NC, that's where you guys can help us transcribe original documents from the archives. Unfortunately, we just don't have the time to do all the transcription ourselves. So it's an opportunity for citizens across the state, as well as anywhere in the world, to help us do some of that legwork. And so you can help us transcribe colonial documents, as well as more modern documents, military documents, you name it. We've got projects that you can help us with.
And Elizabeth, what are you looking forward to here in Raleigh?
I cannot speak for all of Special Collections, but for myself, I'm very excited for us to start working on the Frank Welpley diaries. These are currently restricted. He was the administrator of the Cherry Hospital in the 1930s and 40s, which was the mental institution where African Americans and other people of color were institutionalized in the state. And we have his personal diaries. Unfortunately, he does mention people by name, so we're going to have to redact them a lot to make sure that we're not spilling anyone's private medical business. But I think that they're a really wonderful resource that we can't show you right now, but eventually we will be able to make them available to you. Hopefully this year. We've got a meeting lined up next week to hammer out some details.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Rebecca asked what collections we have available for America 250. Anna added a spotlight for the Revolutionary War and digital collections. I will say there are a lot of collections related to America 250 in our holdings. I don't know if we've brought any new in over the past year specifically for Revolutionary War, aside from maybe the Halifax County Court records. But we certainly have a lot of collections already, both relating to the Revolutionary War period itself, but also America 250 is celebrating When Are We Us? And that is, looking at the nature of North Carolinians and our civic engagement throughout our entire history. So many of our collections, from our education records to our private collections that document suffrage movements, to our, oral histories of people who are involved in integration, are speaking to America 250. And our programming throughout the year is going to highlight both materials from the Revolutionary era as well as materials from throughout the rest of North Carolina's history that relate to America 250. So if there's a specific topic you have in mind, I encourage you to reach out to our public services staff, because I guarantee that we probably have something that relates to what you're looking for America 250. Thank you for the question. Let's see. We have we only have time for a few more quick questions. There's a question about how does it work when we work with counties for court transfers? And are they resistant to us coming in? There's no pressure on counties for county transfers. It is entirely up to them if they want to call us in. And then once they call us in, Flannery, do you want to say sort of how that happens from there?
Yeah, basically the way that it works is that we are contacted by whatever county it is. I will say that a lot of the ones that we worked with last year, there's a lot of counties who are building new courthouses. And so we are giving them the opportunity to have us move their materials out of the building instead of them having to move it from one building to another. So I think that that has been helpful for us. But basically we go down, we do a consultation where we take a look at the records and we look through and find the ones that are archival and will be transferred to the archives. And the court system has a retention schedule that we go off of to decide what those things are. It's pretty broad and we do take a lot in. And then once we've gotten that final inventory, they submit it to the administrative office of the courts. Once the AOC approves it, then we set up a date. We drive on down with our van and possibly our box truck, and we pack everything up into the van or the box truck and bring it back to Raleigh and unpack it and finish processing it. So it's a very involved and very physical process, and we get to eat a lot of really good local food. And most of the courthouses are really happy to have us come down, but we definitely don't just show up and insist that they give us their records. It is an invitation situation.
Absolutely. And we see we have two more questions from Bill. He asked, do we have public school student records from Bertie County from the early 1900s? So the answer to that is maybe. And I say maybe because it depends on what you're looking for. The cumulative records for schools are not archival. So like things like a student's transcripts and things like that, those are going to stay in the individual school systems. The records that we do have here in the state archives for school records particularly, 1919 is a really critical year because that's the foundation of DPI. And so starting in the early 20s and later, we start to have graduate lists for schools, for public schools in North Carolina. And that's when you start seeing specific student names show up. Before that, it's less common. There are some common school reports in the mid 19th century that list students, but they're scattered. So there's a bit of a gap in terms of student records between 1861 and 1919. That said, some counties do have school records specifically, school census records and other assorted records as part of their county records collection. I don't have the catalog right in front of me to search for Bertie County, but I encourage you to reach out to our public services staff. And you can send a reference request to our archives email box and ask what we have for Bertie County for school records, and they might be able to fill that gap in for you. So basically, high school graduate lists, 1920 and later, you probably got a pretty good chance. If it's earlier you're looking for, it might be in the county records. And we are at time, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to skip our last question on the textiles, but I will say that it's amazing that Heather has the textiles. So we're looking forward to seeing more about that collection. I want to thank you all for coming to this program. We will be sending out the recording as well as the links to all of you. And please join us in the State Archives in Raleigh, in Manteo, or in Asheville, or send us emails to do your remote reference, or check out our collections at North Carolina Digital Collections. We look forward to helping you with your research, and we can't wait to see where this year takes us with new year and new collections. Have a great day, everybody.